The Epstein Files, Part 8. After the Deal, Silence, Immunity, and the Years Between. In 2008, the case appeared to end. On paper, the legal system had spoken. A plea agreement had been signed. A sentence had been served. The matter officially was closed. But closure is a legal concept. Silence is a social one. This episode examines what happened after the deal, the years in which accountability was deferred, attention faded, and structures of immunity quietly solidified. Because the most important consequence of the plea deal was not what it punished. It was what it protected. Following the 2008 agreement, Jeffrey Epstein served a brief sentence in a county jail in Palm Beach, Florida. The conditions of confinement were highly unusual. Epstein was permitted to leave the facility for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, under what was described as a work-release arrangement. He was allowed to spend these hours at a private office. The justification given was administrative. The effect was symbolic. To observers, it signaled that this was not a standard application of punishment. The system had moved swiftly to normalize the outcome. Equally significant was what the plea deal contained beyond sentencing. The agreement included provisions that extended immunity to unnamed potential co-conspirators. This was not widely known at the time. The language was buried within the legal structure of the agreement. It did not name individuals. It did not specify roles. It did not explain scope. But it functioned as a shield. Not only for Epstein, but for anyone whose involvement might later be examined. For the victims, the aftermath was marked by exclusion. Under the Crime Victims' Rights Act, federal law requires that victims be informed of major developments in a case. In this instance, many were not. The plea deal was negotiated in secrecy. The agreement was finalized without their knowledge. They learned of it after the fact. This omission was not procedural. It was structural. In the years that followed, the public narrative stabilized. Epstein was now described as a registered sex offender. This label carried weight, but it also carried limitation. It framed the story as resolved. It implied finality. It discouraged further inquiry. Media attention declined. The case became background noise. Epstein re-entered elite social circles. He traveled extensively. He maintained residences in New York, Florida, New Mexico, Paris, and the Caribbean. His access to wealth, institutions, and influence remained intact. This continuity is important. Because punishment, when isolated from consequence, becomes performative. During this period, civil litigation continued quietly. Some victims pursued lawsuits. Settlements were reached. Non-disclosure agreements were signed. These cases did not generate headlines. They did not prompt criminal review. They functioned within a private legal ecosystem. One designed to minimize visibility. Meanwhile, questions surrounding the plea deal persisted among legal scholars and journalists. Why had federal prosecutors deferred to state charges? Why had the agreement been structured to avoid broader exposure? Why were victims excluded from the negotiation process? These questions did not disappear. They were simply unanswered. Between 2009 and 2014, Epstein's name surfaced occasionally in investigative reporting. But no institution moved decisively. No review was initiated. No agreement was reopened. The system treated the matter as settled. This period reveals something essential about how power operates after scandal. The absence of action is not neutrality. It is maintenance. Silence does not emerge organically. It is sustained. In 2015, a shift began. not from law enforcement, but from journalism. Investigative reporters revisited the case. They examined court filings. They interviewed victims. They reconstructed timelines. What emerged was not new evidence, but forgotten context. The story had not changed. Attention had. A critical development came when legal challenges were filed alleging that the plea deal violated federal law by excluding victims. These filings did not seek spectacle. They sought process. They argued that legality had been achieved through procedural omission. This reframing was significant because it questioned not Epstein's guilt, but the system's integrity. In 2016 and 2017, the issue remained unresolved. Courts deliberated. Motions were filed. The case existed in legal limbo. Once again, time functioned as insulation. By 2018, renewed investigative reporting brought the case back into public focus. Details long buried resurfaced. Patterns were re-examined. The plea deal was no longer treated as an endpoint. It became the subject. This moment matters because it demonstrates how accountability can be delayed without being denied, how systems rely on exhaustion, how attention cycles serve institutional preservation. The years between 2008 and 2018 are often described as a gap, but they are not empty. They are active. They represent a period in which silence did work. This episode is not about what happened next. That comes later. This episode is about what did not happen and why that absence matters. Because power rarely needs to act loudly. It only needs to ensure that nothing interrupts its continuity. In the next episode, the quiet years end. Attention returns. Jurisdiction shifts, and a case believed to be closed reopens, not because facts changed, but because silence finally broke. End of Part 8.